How's it going, guys, and welcome to a new video. In today's video we're talking about the LG 4 OLED. And guys, I just gotta say, this calibration has been in a long time making. I've been working at this for a long ass time, and it takes time because the thing is, I have to check out many different games. If I see a deviation in the color, I have to take a break, go away, come back, check out the colors again, and after hours on end, I think I've spent around 300 hours or so trying to calibrate my TV with my own eyes. What essentially you have to do is, you have to change the low point, then go away, come back. Does it look okay or does it look too magenta or green? Then you start to dial in the low point, and you look at where the low point is on screen. Go away, come back. You have to do that all the time. And it's a thing, man. It takes time. It's painful, but it's also pretty fun. So, I'm gonna take some water. I've just eaten a lot of food, and we're gonna begin with the video. Okay, so here it is. I'm gonna check how this looks on camera, but it should look pretty fine. No, it doesn't. Okay, good. Let's fix it. Right about there. Okay, great. So, here's the thing, right? This TV has this green tint. Nobody likes it. There is always going to be a green tint on this TV. It's just the screen coating is green. So we can't really get rid of it. However, we can make sure that the TV doesn't look green. How do we do that? Well, first we have to make sure that the TV is magenta, so it's leaning in the other direction of the white balance. If it's not white now, that's not gonna look good. So I still have to make sure that skin tones are correct as much as possible, that the colors underneath the green tint pop out as much as possible. That's a good takeaway, that yes, I am dialing it in pseudo correct. I'm not gonna talk about it too much actually, because I feel like most of you guys at home aren't calibrators and you might not even understand what I'm talking about. What do you mean deviating towards magenta or green? For the pros at home, good for you, but for the noobs at home, this is just gonna become a headache. So let's showcase the differences. Okay, so I am using really weird settings. Just follow along. I'm not going to explain it. Just follow along. We're going to be mapping Filmmaker mode. We're not going to be touching your favorite game optimizer. Filmmaker mode, when being run with game optimizer in the background, with the game bar enabled, you do have all of the benefits still from game optimizer, except for black and white stabilizer. Everything else still works. So don't care too much. So we're gonna go from my calibration to default settings of game optimizer. The only thing we've done is we've limited the max brightness to 50 on both modes. So boom, here we go. This is completely green, and we go back to my Filmmaker mode, and it looks a lot more magenta, but it looks also very, very balanced compared to the other mode. We can also see the highlight peak of the sky here becomes a lot brighter, but it's still running 50 in pixel brightness. It's because we're doing limited in the Filmmaker mode, which is correct, and we're doing full, which is the automatic mode on game optimizer. Full is gonna have a reach from 0% to 100%, and the highlight peak is not gonna deviate completely correct. So if you have 1000 nits, it should be in theory up here, but 1000 nits on full will be about here on the graph scale, if you get what I mean here. I should have had a whiteboard, but I still don't own a whiteboard. Now limited is going to limit it to that point, so 1000 nits will now be at the correct corresponding point, which makes the sky in this case brighter. The sky is not supposed to be 1000 nits here, it's just supposed to be close to 1000 nits, so really bright, pushing over the edge here with some blooming, and it looks really good when it's correctly mapped. If it's not correctly mapped, it's not going to be bright enough. I'm gonna check the camera just to make sure that you guys, yeah, you can definitely see what I'm talking about. It's gonna clip a little bit on camera. That is totally fine though. Hopefully you can see the deviation in colors as well, that the colors of yellow and red, orange, whatever this color is supposed to be on your jacket, becomes more pungent, pushes out of the image a lot more. The trees become more green, magenta, warm, instead of being purely green cyan. And I just think, honestly, taking the time to get used to this image, and then after 15 minutes or so going back to this looks horrible. I don't like the normal warm 50 cold hue that the TV has. A lot of people are gonna say, warm 50 is a warm hue, what are you talking about? Yeah, well, if you're used to a warmer tint than warm 50 is gonna look really cold green. So it kind of depends on your eyes calibration skills. Your eyes will adapt, always. If you use sunglasses and you're out and you're sunbathing in the sun, and you take off your sunglasses, you have had them on for like an hour, and you have closed your eyes, you're sunbathing, and then you take them off and you open your eyes, and you will have a super cold blue tint over the entire scope. Like, it just looks completely wrong. And then the eyes will auto-calibrate for like 10 seconds or so, and it's gonna be correct again. The same thing happens when you look at a TV. That's probably also one thing that makes you get a little bit of eye strain. So if it's too blue, your eyes are gonna strain more because they're gonna have to recalibrate what the TV is showing. And then if you also have PVM flicker, which flickers the display, your brain is gonna filter out the flicker and the color deviation. That's also gonna cause a lot of eye strain. Now, over time, with me having my trusty eye drops, my eyes have become a little better. Definitely a lot better, like 20% more inclined for brightness, I would say. So instead of me having to limit brightness to 30, I can now do 50. But if I use dynamic tone mapping on, I can only handle 30. 50 with dynamic tone mapping on such a large scale as a 77-inch TV in this dimly lit room, it's gonna be too much for my eyes to handle still. So I'm trying to find the best ways to get as much pop from the TV as possible and as good color deviation as possible. We don't want any weird deviation, we want it to be correct as possible. So realistic toning, which is the exact same true tone in this case that you have on your iPhone. If you use True Tone, you're gonna have about this tint. And if you have an Samsung QD OLED, the colors pop a lot more than on an LG OLED, because the LG OLED is limited like crazy from factory, and you can push out those colors. It's not gonna necessarily be accurate, but it's possible to make it look very close with the yellows and the greens from a QD OLED, because the strong suit of the LG OLED is actually green and yellow. So when using it in correct modes and you push it out, it's gonna look really good. So, number one thing that we can notice from my newer settings here is the sky. It now pops a lot more. We have colors not deviating. This looks really green-yellow. Now it's look more yellow-orangey. And I think that's more how a taxi car looks in real life. It doesn't look green-yellow, it looks yellow-orange. So already a lot better. So, looking at a darker scene here, it looks very cold and very green cyan. And then in the newer ones, it just looks gray and dark, and it looks fine. Her jacket also looks a lot more red here, and I think it looks really good. So, next image. Oh, sorry, that's a wrong image. Let's see. Wait, why am I in... I'm in the wrong menu. There we go. Okay, so here we go. This is Modern Warfare 2 Remastered. You can see explosions happening. We're indoors. So the lights in here should be a little bit warmer than the lights out there. This looks cold, but it doesn't look cold like the TV tint cold. It just looks colder with the colors. You get the idea. Come on. Now we use the original color mapping of the TV, normal warm 50. It looks like this. It's green, it's cold, everything is green and cold. Nothing is warm. This is not warm orangey hue that a D65 white point indoor light would be. So, bloop, now it's correct, but it has that magenta tint hue that you're gonna have to get used to. So if you go back and forth, you're gonna see super magenta, super green, super magenta, super green. You're gonna have to use the magenta tint, get used to it, then go back and you will see how badly the warm 50 looks. We can see here on the yellow it pops like crazy in comparison to before. The explosions get a lot higher nits. Yeah, in general I think everything looks a lot better, but it has a magenta tint instead of a green tint, right? We're doing cutbacks for the tint. So, we're outdoors, the snow. This looks a lot greener with the original tint. It's now cold blue and green, and with my newer settings it looks white and also magenta. And when I get used to this image, already it starts to look less magenta and it starts to look more white, and then I go back and then it's like the snow looks blue and green now, and this looks more white. So yeah, and we have more yellow and reds here, and obviously overall the image just looks a lot more comparable in my opinion. We have this other shot right here. We have this, I don't know what these are called, the spokes inside of the... You get the idea. You have seen these before. What the heck are they called? It doesn't matter. My English is not good today. We're looking at the colors. We need it to be white. It needs to look like snow as much as possible. We need to have correct highlights as much as possible. And we go back and it's like every single color now looks more green and blue and cold. And I would say the entire screen looks very teal or cyan. Very, very teal. It looks blue and green. And this looks a lot better. Like it's not even, it's not comparable. The colors of stuff changes drastically. These pants look green, now they look more beige brown black-ish kinda. So they look like I don't know what the fabric is called, but they look like the corresponding color to what it would have been in real life, in my opinion. It doesn't look weird. The skin tones are beige. From the beginning they are like beige green. They still look kind of beige in the original, but they have a slight green tint to them. So the favela map always looked really green to me when I played this on the OLED. And I really didn't like how that looked compared to my older LCD. No, the older LCD wasn't correctly mapped either, but just understand, this is a lot more comparable in my opinion. The houses, like this house right here, pops with its yellow, just like a QD OLED does. Let's see. I'm gonna see how it looks on camera. Can you even see what I'm talking about? Yeah, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Doesn't really look as intense as in real life. That yellow looks insanely bright to my eyes right now, and on the camera it doesn't look as crazy. So we have a green wall here and a yellow building up there, and we go back to the original. And you can see it's desaturated, it looks boring. A lot of people are gonna say it doesn't look like a QD OLED. QD OLED looks a lot better, blah blah blah. But generally speaking, it's just the LG OLED is more teal and it's desaturated to look more realistic. But in a movie sense, yes, that's a better thing. It's a better way of going. But when it comes to a game, this is the better way of going. I think more colors that pops the image and then correct grayscale is a lot more important, in my opinion. So, in this case, everything just looks more comparable. The sky doesn't look green, it looks warm gray. Here's Fortnite. It's running in SDR and it doesn't have any HDR information. So, when deviating in between the two, you can see how, even without HDR, the yellow of these sunflowers or whatever these small flowers are supposed to be, they're popping a lot more, and we don't even have any HDR. We have some really cool warm tinges here that weren't there before because everything was just green and washed out. And now we have a lot more dynamics with the image. It looks great. This game does have HDR. This has the BT2020 yellow here, and in the original, it's not there. It's desaturated, it looks really bad, it looks very poor, and that's how Game Optimizer looks on this TV. There's not really much we can do about that, honestly speaking. And now you might say, oh, but the latency must surely be lower in Game Optimizer. I think it's like 2 milliseconds lower, so if you're gonna be competitive, maybe don't use Filmmaker mode, but if you're gonna play single player games, you won't notice the difference whatsoever, and if you're playing in 120Hz mode, the latency is exactly the same, so it doesn't matter. Filmmaker mode in this case really pops out this, and I'm gonna show you why it's popping up so much, because it's not gonna do that for you by default. You're gonna have to map it in to be this crazy. We can see in some of the highlights here, you might not be able to see it, but I see it. We're clipping the highlights in Filmmaker mode instead of Game Optimizer, and it's because of what I said before. The full range will have more range, limited on the TV will have less range, but will correctly map out the OTF correctly with the contrast. In nits, in terms of nits or candela per square, you get the idea. I'm not gonna. It just gets too much information. But yeah, in general, the image looks a lot more contrasty and better. We are not getting any black level crush yet, but in some games we are gonna get black level crush. It's up to you then to map in the settings. So what you're gonna have to do, and I'm gonna show that off in the video as well, but you're gonna have to not listen to our gaming tech and the other guys calibrate. Just max out the brightness. We're gonna fix that with tone mapping. And then you're also just gonna dial in the black level until it's good for you in game, not on the TV. And then you're gonna dial in the midtones so that it looks contrasty enough for you that you think it looks great. So we're trying to simplify how to HDR calibrate as well. So it's a 2 and 2 in this video. Because calibrating HDR is just, it's not easy and people don't really understand how it's done. In this video, we're gonna try to make it easier for the noobs and the pros, so it's not gonna become such a big process. So yes, there we go. Now I showed it off. We're gonna stay in the mode. I'm gonna give you the settings first. So, either go OLED pixel brightness 50 or 100. I've noticed when you go down to 30, so you go below 45, the entire image contrast begins to invert itself. I think it's just because the individual pixels don't have enough metadata to go off from. I think. I don't actually know what's going on. But I've noticed when you dial this down and you look at green and certain colors, the image looks like it's like flipping itself up inside out almost. It looks really weird with the contrast. So I'm trying to get used to 50. I used to do 30 and that looked really broken in many games. You're gonna go black level 54, color depth 65, sharpness I have it on 0, and I'm not using eye care mode anymore because that's gonna add a lot of green now. So that's important, don't use eye care mode anymore. It should be good enough for you with the other settings that I use, that we should have this inside of the calibration. So don't care too much about this, you don't need it anymore. We're gonna go brightness. Here are the settings: 50, 100, 54, off, but we're gonna go into here, go professional, 10, 100, 10. So 4000 mastering is going to be on 100. So in here, no dynamic tone mapping, we go off and we click professional, we do 10 on 1000, 100 on 4000, 10 on 10,000 nits. Okay, great. So we're only really boosting the 4000 mastering. Great. Now we're gonna go down. Video range limited. It's gonna be auto on the PS5. Motion eye care, I have this on for my eyes. It saves a lot. I don't really know what it does though, but it seems to make it easier for my eyes. 65 color depth. We're gonna do R8 on tint. Adobe RGB, fine tune. We're gonna go in and do user selection. Yellow, we're gonna do 20, 25, and 20 again. And on blue, we're gonna do -10, +15 on luminance. Okay, done. You can pause the video and go back, it's totally fine. I'm just gonna be fast for the folks at home that don't want me to waste their time. Warm 30, high point 20, -30, -48. Low point, +40, 8, and 5. You're gonna have to look here on your own. If you see a minus, you're gonna have to add the minus, because I'm going so fast that I might miss saying -4 or whatever. We're gonna go back so I can show the high point again. This is -30, -48. But on the low point, we're only doing plus, so we're not adding any minuses here. Okay, we're gonna go into 10-point scale. You're gonna go down to the lowest value of the code value on 10-point scale, which is 373. You're gonna go -5 on blue. You're gonna go up one step to 477 minus 5, and you're gonna do this throughout the entire scale from what I remember. Yes. 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 Just double checking so I'm not misinforming. Okay, so on the highest point here, we're not gonna dial in the blue. But on everything else underneath, you go minus 5 on blue. Now, 22 point scale. We're on the lowest point. Nothing's happening there. We're gonna check make sure that we're not doing anything wrong here. Yeah, on the 22 point scale, you're not gonna calibrate whatsoever. Just leave it. So there we go. Now we have made the screen magenta. Now what we want to do, we want to go into clarity. I have super resolution on off and sharpness on 0. If you want it, you can add low and do 20 or 25. You're gonna see that text if you're close by, or if you have a really large screen, you can see how you have some weird deviation, pixelation on the text when using this. So it's really up to you. I wouldn't use medium, I would use low or high. And depending on which setting you use, you might want to dial in the sharpness differently. It's totally up to you though. I recommend to either not use sharpness at all, or use, if you want extra sharpness, use 15, 20, or 25. If you really want as much as possible before the image starts to break, you want to go 28. If you go 26 or 27 or 29, you know, in between those numbers that I said, you will get color bending. That's why I said 15, 20, 25, and 28. Those are the only numbers you can go to. I'm personally, right now, I'm not going to use any sharpness or super resolution. That's me today. Tomorrow I might change that. It doesn't really matter. Sharpness doesn't add to the experience. It just makes stuff sharper. So that is the calibration. Now we're going to go and hover on the HDR select mode. We're going to type on the numpad 111311. And we're going to go mastering peak. I can show you. I'm just going to put this to auto, and you're going to go on the left arrow, and you're just going to press on the OK button 2 times. Boom, boom. 4000 nits. Max CLL. Boom, boom. 4000 nits. Nice. Now you're done. You have successfully calibrated your display. We are going to go in here to the screen video mode. We're going to go into the HDR here, and we're going to map it out. Let's see. You're gonna put it so that you don't see the sun. If you can slightly see the sun, it doesn't really actually matter that much. But let's say we still see the sun ever so slightly, like really slightly. Then you're gonna go one step more. Okay, how many clicks is that? It's from 0 up, it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 clicks. 13 clicks from 0. It's gonna be the exact same here. Yeah, 13 clicks. And on the third tab, you're gonna make it as dark as possible. These settings are gonna be automatic, automatic, always on, automatic, automatic. This is gonna be on. These are gonna be on. Okay, there we go. It's really not harder than that. It's very easy to calibrate the TV. Now, let me know what you think about the settings in the description. In the comment section. Thanks for subscribing. Hope you liked the video. I'm just gonna think, is there something else that we have to do? Yes, for the people at home that really don't know how to calibrate with these newer settings, because these settings are a little weird compared to other settings. It is actually a lot simpler than you might think. So, what you're gonna do is, you can't really clip the highlights now. In some games you can, and that's if you're gonna go above 4000 nits in the game. So if you can do 10,000 nits, then you're gonna clip the highlights. Just do 4000 nits, if you can see it say 4000. If you can't see it say any value, and you're like guessing at that point, what you're gonna do is, you're gonna look at how bright the game looks. Like this. We don't have a sun here. I can't sit this close. We do have these torches here, and we have the snow and the overall picture. And let's say I think this is too dim or too bright. So we're gonna go into the display settings, and here, what am I gonna put this brightness slider on? Okay, middle here would be correct, but I have actually slided it up all the way. Generally speaking, in a game normally, you wouldn't want to do above the correct section. So when this disappears, that's correct. But in this game, if you do this and you do like gaming tech says, the game is going to be super dim. These are going to be correct, but it's super dim. This is not fun to play. If it's going to go dark in the game, like later on in the game, it's going to be way too dark. So dialing this up all the way also makes the sky brighter, and this slider also makes the sky brighter. So you want to have it on the brightest, and now you also see that the midtones are raising, and you're going to have more blue midtones. That's just how the game is mapped. There's nothing you can do about that. Boom! Now the overall nits on the entire screen will be brighter, and this is a lot more playable in my opinion. It's just too bad the game is running in PSSR. You can turn off PSSR in this game if you want to. If you're on PS5 Pro, you have to turn off 120Hz mode on the PS5. That's why I had it off. But yeah, I think the 120Hz looks and feels good from a distance, so I'm gonna keep on using it. But that's the setting, so I just maxed it out in this game, and that looked fine to me. It's not gonna work for all games, so make sure that the screen is bright enough and that the highlights aren't breaking. That's the most important part. For Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, it's a little different, and I'm gonna show you what I've done in that game. But just know, in general, it doesn't really matter too much how you calibrate your TV with HDR. The TV is correctly mapped now to give you the most impact. So it's really up to you now to dial in the settings to what you want to have from the TV. So, what do I have with the HDR here? Well, I have the default settings. I have HUD brightness on the lowest because I don't want to have the HUD coming up or subtitles and it just bleeds into my eyes. It's gonna hurt. So I don't have any subtitles, and I have dialed down the brightness of the HUD. You don't have to do that if you're not sensitive to HUD elements being too bright. Now, let's say you do want to dial in the settings. You want even more. Well, dial up the contrast, dial up this, and you're gonna see how this brightness, it's gonna dial up the brightness here. It's not gonna become too much more brighter there. You're just gonna see the fog becoming brighter, and the near black becomes a little brighter. So, in retrospective, this doesn't just dial up the brightness, it dials up the brightness of all of the sliders. So it's not just the brightness of the luminance, it's a lot more. But generally speaking, just dialing up the brightness, it's gonna make the game look a little washed out. Right here I can see that it becomes less contrasty. When I dial up the brightness, I also have to dial up the contrast, and then the darks do become too dark. So a good balancing point would be to just leave it at the default value. It would be mapping for 1000 nits from what I remember at this point. What you would want is 4000 nits, so you could dial this up. But I can already see how it washes out the image. I can't really recommend any settings in this game because I'm not 100% sure, but you could go 5.5. That would be a slight boost, but it will be a little bit darker in the blacks. I am, however, really happy with how it looks with the settings at 0.0, so that's what I'm gonna do. Let's try another game. Let's see. A game that has hard HDR. Black Myth Wukong, you're gonna go 0 with the brightness. Cyberpunk is gonna become almost impossible to calibrate for because we are in limited instead of full. Elden Ring has super poor HDR, so it doesn't really matter. You can max out the sliders in that game. Color and the brightness, it doesn't matter at all. Helldivers, I would go default setting and dial down the brightness by 3 clicks. So -3 clicks. That's what I've done in that game. In Hogwarts Legacy, you're gonna do 4000 nits, and you're gonna up the paper white until you think you're happy with the brightness. Make sure that the highlights don't clip. If they clip ever so slightly, it's totally fine. If they clip completely, it's not gonna look bright anymore. So that's how you can know. This has super bad HDR. This is okay, but it's washed out because of black level rays. That will be fixed with fine tune dark areas. Make sure that fine tune dark areas is dialed back and to the default setting if you're gonna swap games or use the presets. However, the presets in Game Optimizer are only, that's the only way of using it. So yeah, don't care too much about the black level. The black level should be fine. If it's not fine, let's say you still want to use fine tune dark areas. Okay, you're gonna go down here, click on the plus icon, add Game Optimizer here. So when you're in Filmmaker mode, you go to Game Optimizer. I've said this before many times. You're gonna make sure that this is enabled inside of Filmmaker mode. You're gonna go down all the way here, and you have fine tune dark areas, and now you can dial it down or up depending on what you want. And you can also enable it. So even though you are using Filmmaker mode in this case, you can still see the frame rate and all of that. However, I personally don't care too much for the game bar, at least not anymore. But for you that want it, that's how you enable it. Also, something that is good to know if you are using Game Optimizer, you have this prevent input delay. Turn that to standard. It's gonna make the settings on the TV a lot faster. And from my experience, I haven't measured the input lag right now. Personally, people are saying this actually dials down the input lag a lot. Personally, I don't feel the difference at all. I just feel that the TV settings become laggier when this is at boost. So I always have it at standard. 144 Hz is gonna make the TV flicker more. So if you're susceptible or weaker towards PVM flicker, don't enable this option. Yeah, I think that's it. I've done other videos for other types of calibrations, but this is the calibration that I'm gonna be using for about 2 months now time. And in the summer, I might make a new calibration when Grand Theft Auto 6 eventually comes out. But for now, this is the last or final calibration. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.